The Imperial Star Destroyer, one of the largest ships ever commissioned by the Star Wars' Imperial forces. Well, today, we're going to print just that. See you guys inside. Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today's video, as I said, we are covering the Imperial Super Star Destroyer. And this model is just wow, in my opinion. It was not difficult to print, but with the supports, there was quite a bit of work to do getting it off and getting it clean because there's so much detail on this model that I could not do this video. Now, if you guys have been catching my live streams, you saw me assemble these. Well, these two anyway. This guy's one piece. We did a lot of assembly on stream, we did a lot of cleanup, and we even did some of the painting on the live stream. So if you haven't seen those, go check those out, because yeah, those are just a lot of fun. If you're new here and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button, because honestly, we do all kinds of fun stuff when it comes to 3D printing and painting and hobbies. So these three ships are the combination of a lot of work. So, and I'll tell you right now, to print one of these, 9 days on my CR10 V2. It took 9 days to print one of them. And the settings are pretty limited and pretty low on what I did with PLA. There's not much infill in these models at all. And it's just the level of detail that comes with these models that is just amazing. Especially when you get into the central superstructure and all the supports that I had to remove. Even the command bridge is nicely there. As you guys can see, this is one that the Rebellion has, the New Republic has commandeered. So, we're going to look at where to find this model out on Thingiverse. We're going to slice this model and get it on the printer. You're going to see the time lapse of these models printing. All three of them. Because they all printed a little different. But they all succeeded. First try. Which is really awesome to have. And also, you know, if you want to see some of the assembly and stuff like that, kick on out there to those live streams. I know they're about 2 hours long, but we have a lot of fun when we do those. And every Tuesday night at 8:15 CST, join us as we do a live stream. It may be painting, it may be assembling a new printer. Who knows what we're going to do? So every week is a little bit different. So come join us on that. If you have any questions about 3D printing, make sure you leave that down in the comments down below, or feel free to email me. So my email address is out on the contact page. So further ado, let's hop over to that computer. Let's get these guys, let's get them found and get them sliced so you guys can take a look at Greeble's wonderful model. Okay, so here we are, we're at Thingiverse, and this is the model, exactly that you saw me do all three of those versions with, the small, the New Republic version, and the Imperial version. This is the model. Verscon is the one that actually went through and reworked the model. The model's been fixed, sliced, and even broken up, so even smaller printers can handle this, like an Ender 3 or something of the Odin 5. That smaller scale can actually replicate this model. The only piece that's going to be a problem on those smaller printers is this middle section right here. But all the files are here. You guys can see the model maker here has done a great job in breaking it up, reinforcing it, and making this easily printable. So go check this one out. Go get it. It's an awesome print, a good print. The detail is fantastic. And actually, I have one sitting here that hasn't had paint yet. You can see that these are the seam lines that I'm filling in and making. So even I did it in multiple parts. This one here and the big ones you saw downstairs are almost 3 feet long in size, and the filling is actually quite well they've put together. And what he did that's really nice is created pin. There's holes that line up in each piece, and you can use pins to connect them together and give that reinforce on those seams, so it's actually quite strong once you have it done. So it's a really good model. This is the one that we built off of. And it just is a really awesome Super Star Destroyer, because one of the things I find out there is there's no real good model kit for a large Super Star Destroyer. There's the little ones, but who wants that when I can print this for about $10 of PLA and have a really awesome detailed model, and I got to do it myself? I mean, that's just a huge perk. So this is where it is on Thingiverse. Link will be down in the description to the model, so you guys can go out and get it. We're going to be printing with multiple printers today, mostly the CR10 V2. We'll do a lot of our work, but also you'll see the full-size one printed on the CR10 Max, which I haven't done a lot of publishing with that printer yet out here on the channel. So, but that one was significantly smaller, and I printed it at an angle, trying to get some of the really good detail to come through on that one, and it came out really well. So let's hop over to Cura, and let's get this guy sliced. All right, here we are out of Cura. And I'm going to use a CR10 for today's demonstration. Now these same parts, you can scale them down to fit on an Ender 3 and still get a really good size model, but for today's demonstration, we're doing the CR10. And specifically, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is when I printed this, and you'll see this in my time lapse, I printed all the pieces all at once. All 6 pieces were on one print bed. I don't always recommend doing that, because if one piece fails, you could lose a whole batch. And I did. Twice I lost a batch. So trying to get this one. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the full-size model out here and load this up while we're talking about this. So you can do it in all one piece. You can do it in multiple pieces. And when you load up the all in one piece, you can see it's caused my MacBook to say, oh my goodness, what have you done to me? So we're going to let that process, because it is a huge detailed model. And we're going to close these out. And I'm going to go to scaling. I'm going to reduce this guy to about 10%. And then I'm going to bring him to the center of the build plate, because Cura has him thrown all over the place right now. And there's 10%. Now how I did this on the CR10 Max is I rotated it, stand on its end, which I do pardon the MacBook is a bit slow. I did this, and then I tilted it. And then I used custom supports to make sure I had really good support, one down here at the tip. And then I went up the edge of the model, just supporting it as it went. And those I did not hit all that well, but you kind of get where I'm going. Is I was just giving that initial support for the model to be able to build up, because the cool thing about this model is it's a triangle. So once you have a good foundation, it'll actually build up really, really well. And on a CR10, that one's going to be about, and actually you can see there's more, we could tilt more and get a larger one, but you got to remember your CR10 build plate is only about, your build volume is only about 20 inches high, so kind of keep that in mind. But with the angle, you actually can get up to 22, 24. So not as big as what I showed up here, but you can get a really cool print. Do it in all in one piece, and you're still getting all that wonderful center detail in there. And one thing I do recommend is you get that bridge supported. So, but that was how I did it on the CR10 Max. You guys will see it out in the time lapses where I did the full one. So I'm going to actually clear my build plate, and we're going to bring on the pieces. Now, the cool thing is the one part that had the New Republic emblems, that's one piece, and you can choose between no emblem and emblem if you want Imperial or not Imperial. So it's kind of a cool thing, a really cool thing that was done really well with this model. So I'm going to pull one of those parts on here. And you guys can see when it loads into my CR10 build plate, this is the New Republic version. It's huge. And I'm going to kick that down to about 50%. Actually, I'm going to go lower than that. We're going to go down to about 30%. We're going to center him. And when I did this, I used this seam piece to be against my build plate. Now, why did I do that? Well, actually, we're going to rotate and do that now. I printed it like this. One, that's a seam. So if the first layer messes up or something like that, you can't see it. Awesome. I didn't inhibit any detail on top and bottom. I'm actually going to adjust my camera view here. Camera position, front. And we're going to go in here. The other reason why I did it this way is look at all that detail. I did not want to dig support out of this to get this detail in here. And basically all of this is visible. All through here is visible because the next piece will just connect on here. And you guys can see that hole I talked about with the pins. So for printing, this was the best option. Now you guys can see it's going to generate a ton of support in here. It took me about an hour to clear the support, but once I cleared it, it was beautiful. And with that, I'm going to go into custom support, and I'm going to make sure the bridge module is supported. That is the only custom support I added in here. So with that said, and the Imperial version, it's the same way. Same way I did it. Now, there's tons of ways you can do this. What worked for me is this. I got a really good print, and it came out really, really awesome. So let's move on to an additional part. Let's add more. Oh, that's the Imperial piece. So I'm actually going to delete that part. And when you're... Oh, I cleared the build plate. My bad. Oh well. We get the point. So as we bring in the other pieces, you want to keep them all to that scale of your largest piece. So here's the piece that goes in front of that. And you guys can tell this is being a little difficult to show because it's so massive. But this is the next section, and I just repeated the process of standing it up because I want all the detail. I don't care about the detail in here. So if something goes wrong, I'd rather it happen in there and then scale it down to my original piece. So say 50%. Or actually, I'm going to scale it down. Let's go 10% is too small. 30%. Not 1030. That would be bad. So 30%. And make sure you're on your build plate. So there's that section. Now the cool thing about these pins is my support filled in the pin. So when I pulled that support out, it created the pin for me, which was pretty awesome. And I did this all at 80% support. The only thing that I really supported was that bridge, because I figured I would snap it off. So basically it's just going down the line of the parts at this point. So you've got the tip, and they're all labeled, which is really awesome that the model maker did that. So you've got the end cone here, the nose. We're going to rotate. And of course Cura is going to throw a fit because I don't have my models locked. So that one scale wise was 22.94. So we got to scale this one to 22.94. And you'll scale all your pieces, that way they match. That way when you go to assemble, they'll actually match each other and fit. So 22.94, 22.94. And make sure you actually have it all the way up on the build plate. So make sure your Z is 0. So you get that piece. And you'll go consistently through all 6 pieces of the model. That way you can get a good build. My support, my quality, I use my CR10 custom profile that I have, 0.2 layer height. Honestly, this model does not need a ton of infill, so save yourself on that. I think the highest I did, all told, because this actual nose piece kind of worried me, I did 5% total infill. This model is incredibly strong and incredibly reinforced that I can actually press in at 5% infill and there is no give. But you also want to make sure that you're not doing too much so you get all these wonderful details like in the engine and in the center section of the ship here. It did, I will say, total time for removing in that center section, very gently with snips and pries. It took me about 2 hours to make sure everything was in there because I did not want to damage any of that structure. Because the more that you damage, the more you got to go back and fill, and that does do work. So it's one of those things you can try going with like maybe 85%, but you do want support in there if you're going to have a lot of spaghetti-looking saggy stuff. So do kind of keep your support in mind. Your infill density can be very small. I didn't need a lot of support. I'm using Inland PLA Plus to do this. They're gray PLA Plus. So my temperatures, I run my Honda in about 215 with their PLA Plus material. I did 50 on the bed. It's a glass bed. Currently in winter, so 50 is actually being quite adequate. Sometimes I'll pop that up to 60, but 50 is a very good temperature for this specific printer. My speeds, I did have retraction enabled and Z-Hop because I had 6 pieces on the build plate, so I wanted it to pick up and move to the next one. I didn't want it to drag. Cooling is pretty much standard settings, and here's how I did my support. 80% support infill density, very low. And then I did use a raft for this one. So air gap 0.5, so it came off the raft, and I only used a 5 margin raft, so nothing too crazy there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We're going to hop over to the time lapses where you can actually see all the parts being printed. If you want to see the assembly, go check out my first live that I did, where we actually dug out this stuff and worked on putting it together. And you'll actually see more work on these on the live streams coming up, because we got to get them painted. I want to get really high detail on these. Right now they're just kind of basic colors. There's no real seam line. I haven't touched any of the middle infrastructure yet, so there's a lot still to do, and we'll be doing that with the live streams on Tuesdays, as well as we'll be kicking off a beautiful series. I know the picture's small, but we got Babylon 5 to work on, guys. 3D printed. Video coming out on it in the future, but we'll be working on it in the live streams coming up, and a few other special little projects. Some resin work will be getting done in there because I'm full storm with 3 of my 4 resin printers going. I got one that's just kind of being a booger, and it's a known problem with that printer, so we'll hopefully get that one resolved soon. And we got some other ships coming as well. So let's hop over to those time lapses, and we'll see you guys over there. All right, guys, that's it. So awesome builds, still works in progress. They're not finished, but you guys can definitely tell there is just so much to this model when it comes to the level of detail. And I know the camera's not really auto-focusing in on it. There we go. Now she focused. A lot of really awesome detail, not just there, but even on the engines. And this is all FDM. There is no resin involved here, and I am by far not finished painting this. This is all filament. This is done with a CR10 V2. I mean, the level of detail available in this model is crazy. And it's one of those things I really just enjoyed. I enjoyed working on this model. It was so clean, so easy to work with, especially once we got through a lot of the detailing and stuff like that. The New Republic symbol on the fins of it are beautiful. You guys can tell I've got some gray. It's still sprayed up into the infrastructure. I still have to actually go through and paint the central spires with some blues in that, and come back along the groove line here with some bluish blacks to really make it pop out, and back here with the engines too. And definitely want to get that yellow red in the engine. But these ships were the sheer force will show of Imperial might other than the Death Stars. When one of these showed up with its fleet, you were going to have a bad day. And I think it's from the books that you actually see where some of these were captured by the New Republic and then used against the Yajavang war that came later, that we haven't seen anything in yet. So who knows, we may see that. But if you're new here and you enjoyed the content, want to see more Star Wars, Star Trek 3D printing, and all kinds of science fiction-y cool stuff, painting, all that fun stuff, make sure you subscribe. And if you have questions, comments down below. I try to get back to you guys as fast as I can. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a good day. We'll see you in the next video.